Hi, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Brett Ronig. I'm your moderator today. I work for the city of Vancouver. I kind of lead the inspection team that does the compliance under phase 2 municipal stormwater permit. And I just wanted to let everybody know you're in the mobile business identification and stormwater source control session. If that's not the right one, you might go out in the hall and look around. And then I would like to just introduce, we have two speakers today, James Packman and Alison Schweitzer, and they have pretty long bios, and they have over 3 decades of experience in stormwater between the two of them. If you want more information on their bios, please read in the program. And I'll go ahead and let them kick it off. One last minute note, if you haven't already, please silence your cell phone. The presentation will be about 20 minutes. We should have about 10 minutes for questions. Go ahead and kick it off.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brett. Big sigh of relief, everyone who made it to the last presentation. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your time. I'm Alison Schweitzer from King County Stormwater Services. And again, I'm here with James Packman from Herrera Environmental Consultants. And we're very excited to share with you about the SAM study that we worked on together about mobile business identification and stormwater source control. We do want to gratefully acknowledge the study sponsors, all the Western Washington municipal stormwater permittees, the SAM program. King County was the agency sponsor for the study, and we're thrilled to dive in with you today. So the purpose of the study was to provide analysis, tools, and resources to help municipal stormwater permittees with source control and pollution prevention programs at mobile businesses. We recognize that it can be hard to identify mobile businesses within your jurisdiction. It's certainly hard to inspect them, and sometimes it can be difficult to coordinate efforts across jurisdictions. So we wanted to help provide some of those tools and resources to overcome those barriers. These are the 7 tasks of the study that we embarked on. I don't want to go into too much detail in the interest of time, so please just focus on that task number 3, business listing generation, which really was honing in on how could we identify mobile businesses within your jurisdiction. And with that, I'm going to hand over to James.
Thank you, Alison. So hello, everyone. I'm James Packman, hydrologist with Herrera Environmental Consultants, and pleased to be here today. Thank you for showing up at the end of the conference. Glad to share this SAM study we did with you. As Alison mentioned, I'm going to talk through the specifics and details of the procedure we developed to identify mobile businesses. So just starting with the goals and objectives, the goal of the procedure was to identify mobile businesses that are specifically of interest to stormwater source control. I'm going to say that a few times during the presentation because, as we can all imagine, there's a wide range of mobile businesses out there, but not all of them may have concerns or risk of stormwater pollution, and that's what we were focused on. The second goal was to prioritize the mobile business lists that we developed to make it easier for municipal permittees to use those lists. The 4 main objectives I'll mention to meet these goals. The first was to identify a data source. Where are we going to start from with the data source? And then we identified keywords that would be associated with mobile businesses, and we'll get into how we use those keywords in the search in just a moment here. Third was to create a program, in other words, a piece of software or an app for the search procedure. And then fourth was to develop a schema to help prioritize those listings. All right, so before we get too down into the weeds here, we just wanted to provide a definition, a working definition of what is a mobile business, as I mentioned, that is of interest to stormwater. And I've just bolded a couple of key concepts here. I'm not going to read the entire definition, but one of the key elements about mobile businesses is that they travel to do their work, and they travel to customer sites. And often that is outside of a business's home jurisdiction. And like any business, any commercial enterprise, the world of stormwater source control takes an interest when there's a risk of stormwater pollution or illicit discharges. So some examples, we just listed a few here to set the stage. Examples include mobile equipment repair services, mobile vehicle repair and vehicle detailing, commercial landscaping services, on-site carpet cleaning and pet grooming, and mobile exhaust hood cleaning. And there are many more, of course, that we could list, but just to help you understand what we're referring to when we talk about mobile businesses. So our first idea about how to find a data source was to do something called data scraping, also known as web scraping. And that is where you start with some websites, and we were thinking websites like Esri, Google Maps and Yelp, they're the ones who have a lot of this information already. And they've already done a lot of the work to identify what type of business it is. Also, something like Google Maps is crowdsourced. And so, people using Google Maps can enter their comments and you can determine what kind of business that way too. So just briefly, the process included getting data from, or this idea of data scraping included getting data from websites and then using some bot or something, as we note here, to actually scrape the data of interest. And then it's a file formatting issue. How do you get that information into a usable format to do a search? So as I've noted here, this was the first idea we had. What we ended up with was a second idea, and that is because we realized that one of the characteristics about data that we might get from a company like Esri or Google Maps, first of all, we'd have to pay for that data source. And second, the basis for those data are business licenses. And business license data is publicly available. So that's where we went for the second idea, and we took that idea and ran with it using business license data. And this, in the state of Washington, is managed by the State Department of Revenue. And there are some pros and cons of using business license data. One is that, as I mentioned, it's available publicly. It's available for no charge, and it's possible to obtain from a public information request. Or if you are a city that participates in Department of Revenue's business license service, which is shown on the right here, that is the service Department of Revenue provides for cities and other public agencies who need to manage business license data. And they do that for no fee if you're a public agency. Some of the drawbacks of potentially using business license data include that, first of all, not all municipal stormwater permittees use business license data. Cities are the primary users, but other permittees like counties, institutions, secondary permittees like ports, they don't really use business license data. So they will need another way to capture the businesses working in their jurisdictions. And it's worth noting also that not every city that uses business license data does it directly through Department of Revenue. Instead, they have a third party help them. Some of you may be familiar with a company called File Local, which I know the city of Seattle uses, and they help the cities manage their business license data. So it's a step removed. Okay. So what we did was we made a connection with the staff person who works in the BLS program, the Business License Service Program. And we had a series of meetings with that person, with the project team, and also with the STEM Studies coordinator, who at the time, that was Brandy Loveliner. And it was a great benefit we saw just to create an opportunity for those two individuals to dialogue across state agencies. Because business licensing, they're really interested in taxation. What type of business are you? Where are you located? What kind of taxes do you have to pay? But when it comes to ecology, we're interested in environmental issues. So those things are kind of worlds apart. So just providing a way for those two entities to have a conversation was a benefit alone. So once we landed on using business license data, we went through that data, we skimmed it, we read through many hundreds of business licenses, and we identified several data fields that are of interest. And business license data contains a lot of information. So it was very helpful to have a connection at Department of Revenue that said, okay, what kind of information are you interested in? And based on our responses, he was able to say, well, here's what I recommend for the data fields that we collect for business licensing. So the data field at the top of that list was the NAICS code. This is the North American Industrial Classification System, a way to classify what type of business you are. Every business has at least one NAICS code that they can align with. So in addition, the NAICS codes, there is guidance provided in the municipal stormwater permits from Ecology about how to use business license data. And they provide a table of NAICS codes that they think could be a table of NAICS codes associated with business types that they think could be related to interest for stormwater pollution and pollution prevention. The second data field we were especially interested in was home operated business. And this is just a yes or no. We didn't really do any analysis on this data field, but we carried it through the process, because when you're looking at lists of businesses and you're thinking about, okay, what's my priority area? Is it the industrial part of my city? Is it a residential part of my city? Knowing if a business is home operated can be helpful. Third was whether or not a business uses hazardous or flammable material. Fourth was what's called here an ETP ID. This is an endorsement type, and business licenses have many different categories that you can get a specific endorsement for. And that refers to specific characteristics about your business. So there was one endorsement type that referred to a non-resident business. This indicates someone who is coming from their home jurisdiction into another jurisdiction, another city to do their work. So while not every mobile business necessarily has to travel out of their home jurisdiction, we thought that this would be a likely field that would indicate a business that has to travel to do their work, and again, points toward a mobile business of interest. This last data field, product description, this was the most interesting and most useful data field because product description is a description in the business's own terms. They write in their business license, here's what my business does. And sometimes they might even describe, we're a mobile business. We travel to our client sites. So this is where we're able to develop a keyword search looking at the business's own description of their operations. And you see that I've got an asterisk there next to the product description field. And that's because there was a data privacy issue. As I mentioned, business license data is public, but it turns out that not all data associated with business licenses is public. In fact, this data field, product description, is what they call non-public. And that just means it has confidential information. That is different than private data, but it means that still, like private data, it just can't be shared freely with the public. So in order to actually use this data, do analysis on the data, we had to sign a confidentiality agreement, right? So coming to focusing on the keywords, again, this is the keywords we developed to search in the product description in the business's own terms about what they did. And I've got two sets of tables up here. The table on the left, this is keywords to include, and the table on the right is keywords to exclude. And what do we mean by that? Keywords to include are those words that we think are very positively associated with the types of mobile businesses that we are interested in. Keywords to exclude are other terms that might point to some kind of mobile business, but ones that we thought, again, made a subjective decision, ones that we thought were not so much of interest for the types of businesses we're looking at, those specifically who might have a risk of stormwater pollution. So some examples, looking at the table excerpt on the left, food truck. That is an obvious example. And you'll notice also, I'm going to bring in one other thing here. This is the weighting factor column. Okay, we added weighting factors to give a little bit more or less weight to certain words. Again, more weight means it's more likely a business that is of interest to us. Smaller weighting, possible, but less likely. So food truck is like a ringer. That is definitely a mobile business. You can see some other words here like detail, contractor, carpet cleaners, and the weighting factors we assigned were between 0.25 and 1. So the largest weighting factor was 1. For the words we wanted to exclude, words like wireless or cellular, different kind of mobile business, right? Not the kind of mobile business we're talking about here. So we assigned a weighting factor of -1 so that we could easily see which words were most applicable and which ones were not. Okay, in total, there were 50 words in the table on the left that we gave a positive weighting to, and 16 words on the table on the right, which we gave a negative. All right, another piece of the procedure we developed was using the NAICS codes. And as I mentioned, there's some pros and cons with NAICS codes. There's guidance in the municipal stormwater permits about them. It's a standard classification that supplanted the standard industrial classification, SIC codes, which were used widely. NAICS codes are more detailed, and there are more of them. And in business licenses, there's actually 2 data fields where you can indicate 2 different NAICS codes. So it kind of gave us a second way, a second data source to look at, to think about if a business is of interest to us. However, some of the cons are that when someone fills out their business license form, they might pick the wrong NAICS codes, right? They might have the wrong idea, not read through all the way through the list. So there's potential user enter error there. Also, as you'll see in just a moment, we went through a process to rank the likelihood of stormwater pollution based on the NAICS code. But a single NAICS code can cover a wide range of businesses. So there's variable risk associated with that. So let's look at the ranking that we developed. We basically assigned the NAICS codes that are in the Appendix 8 of the ecology guidance for the stormwater permits, those are almost 59 NAICS codes or groups of codes, and we assigned all of them either high, medium, or low risk. So just some examples are shown here. The high risk ones refer to businesses that have outdoor activity or outdoor storage, or maybe are transportation related. The examples here are auto dealers, repair and maintenance. Medium risk, this contained the most number of NAICS codes from the ecology guidance, and that is for businesses that do manufacturing, construction, equipment rental. And then the lowest risk were ones that are like public institutions or food service. Now, this was a subjective assignment of risk, and it could be revised. And the procedure that we developed allows a user to customize the assignment of what's considered high, medium, and low risk. All right, so I've got a slide here that very succinctly but very densely covers the search procedure. Okay, and I just want to give acknowledgement to former colleagues at Aspect Consulting, Parker Whitman and Alex Thompson, who helped really with the conceptual idea here. Alex is a Python wizard. He did all the programming in Python. So that's where we begin. We begin with the coding. It was written in Python. For anyone who uses Python or might be familiar, it had parsable reference tables, and Alex used a pandas library to sort those tables. In the end, the Python code results, when it's compiled, it results into an executable file. And that's what you run to actually do the search. And I'll mention about the input-output files. You need a dedicated folder, someplace where the reference files are going to live and where the output files need to go. So the input itself is composed of 4 things. One, the first is your business license list. And for this project, we focused on King County. So we had a list from Department of Revenue of all business licenses in King County. That was over 83,000. Then there are 3 reference tables that are included as part of the package that you will download when you use the tool. And those reference tables include the prioritized NAICS codes, the endorsement type, which is indicating if a business is resident or non-resident in the city where they're applying for a license, and then the table of the keywords that we developed. Third is to do the search. For our search, we focus on just the non-resident businesses, but if your data set doesn't have that or even some other data fields, the search will just skip right over it and continue going through its process. So you don't need to have that information, but for our purposes and for the scope of this study, we chose to focus just on non-resident businesses. And then ultimately the search is looking for keywords in that product description field. The last step here is the output. And the output is simply an Excel file. It has all of the business records that you put into it with a few added columns that calculate things like the score. How many times was that keyword repeated in the description? And then the weighted scores based on our weighting is provided, as well as a list of which keywords were found. And then the records are color coded in the output file to indicate the high, medium, or low risk levels. All right, so here are 2 slides about how to use the keyword tool. And the first, as I mentioned, you create a dedicated folder where your input and output files go. And then second is to obtain and prepare your data file set. If you are a city that participates in Department of Revenue's Business License Service, you have access to their data portal. And when you download a file of business licenses from that data portal, it is in the format that works seamlessly with the tool we developed. You can also choose option B, which is to create your own file, your own source data file. It's a little bit more work, and you have to format it in just such a way. You have to include 26 data fields. Even if they're blank, we still need the column headers there. But really, when it comes down to it, there's just 3 data fields that are needed to actually run the search successfully on a data file, and that is the business name and a unique identifier number, such as the business license number, which is the UBI number. Also, the business description. This is the product description field that comes with business license data. If you're assembling your own data file, some other data field that describes what the business does that can be used for the keyword search. And then third is the NAICS codes associated with that business. All right. The third step here is to run the executable file. You just double click it. And I should say that first, when you download the file, it comes in a zip folder. a zip file, sorry. And so that's a compressed folder, and you need to copy the contents from there into this input-output folder where all the data source files are located. So once you do that, it's important to run the executable file from that input-output folder, not from the compressed zip folder. I just want to mention that. And then there's really just two steps. Once you run it, you get two prompts. And the first one is shown here. You're prompted to select the folder with the reference tables. These are the 3 reference tables that come with the package. And that's what is shown here. The second prompt is to select your data file. So it's just those 2 elements. The executable spits out this Excel file with these added information about the weighted score, about the NAICS risk, and other things. And so we provide a recommendation for how to sort that output file to basically put the highest risk businesses with the highest scores at the top of your list. And that's what we recommend starting with, is those highest risk businesses. So the sorting is first on the weighted score, largest to smallest, on the NAICS risk, highest to lowest. And then the keywords alphabetically can be a useful way to group together similar types of businesses. So if you're looking at a group of, for example, mobile carpet cleaners, it'll be useful to have those grouped together to see, where they're located, how they describe their business, and more details. All right, the 5th and final step is to incorporate this into your source control inventory. And I just want to start by emphasizing that it's really up to the permittee's discretion how much a permittee would include this listing of mobile businesses in their source control inventory. At this point, all the permittees have already gone through the process to develop their inventory. There's a requirement to update it once per permit cycle. So this is sort of an advisory list that says if you want to include mobile businesses, here is a focused approach that would give you a listing of likely mobile businesses who have a business license in your jurisdiction and may be operating in your jurisdiction. Second is, we recommend starting with the highest risk businesses, as I mentioned just a moment ago. There are many, as you'll see in just a moment, we show the sum total of likely mobile businesses in King County, and it can reach up into the thousands for an individual city. So starting with the highest risk ones really just narrows the scope. We recommend gathering relevant outreach information, knowing what BMPs are relevant to that type of business. And then there is more guidance available in this regard about how to use the list in this best practices guidance document. There's a link here, so I hope somehow the conference will share out these slides with everyone so they can get these links. And on the right here, we just have some testimonials from folks who have used the keyword search. Those are a combination of both just communications that Alison and I have had, but also from the pilot program that we did for the study. And I've just got one quick slide about the pilot program. This is a map of King County, and this is a map of all the incorporated cities. The cities in purple are those cities that participate in Department of Revenue's business license service. They're already signed up. The cities in gold also incorporated, but they manage their business license data themselves or with a third party like File Local. So and then the green check marks are the cities that participate in the pilot program, which are listed here. So just to give you a sense, I hope you can read this all the way in the back, about the total number of businesses. We talked about over 83,000 business license records in King County. And after running the search, we came out with about 30,000 potential mobile businesses. So, 30,000, that's a huge number. So you can understand why we want to somehow prioritize that and help permittees decide where to start. So that's where we start with the highest risk businesses. And in each individual city, those numbers range from 5 to 125, which, relatively manageable compared to thousands. All right. So also regarding implementation, this is just a slide on another task of the study, and that is one where we created 3 new outreach brochures for mobile businesses specifically. The first was for mobile auto repair. The second was for commercial landscaping, and the third was for pressure washing. And pressure washing, some of you may have heard other presentations about this today. The reissued permit last year includes requirements for addressing PCBs and potential pressure washing applications like building exterior cleaning. And here's a link to download these brochures. They're available on Washington Stormwater Center website, and King County was kind enough to translate them, have them translated into Spanish. So there's English and Spanish versions. All right, we have just one slide left here, which is kind of a roundup of 4 recommendations and conclusions that Alison and I will present together.
Awesome. So our first recommendation from this study is to encourage jurisdictions to use this keyword search that was developed to help identify these likely mobile businesses that would have problems for pollution prevention and source control. We want to encourage jurisdictions to use this keyword search when updating your inventories. If you have questions, please reach out to James or I, and we'd be happy to walk you through it.
Second, this is a recommendation for ecology, which is to consider updating that Appendix 8 in the municipal stormwater permits. That's the appendix that has the list of the industrial classifications codes, the NAICS codes, about which business types ecology thinks may be relevant to stormwater pollution. That list has been around for a number of years, and in our efforts to try to classify it and rank the risk levels, we think it would be good for ecology to revisit that list, maybe add some more, and it would be ideal to actually add some specifically associated with mobile businesses.
A third recommendation from the study should be no surprise. Obviously, mobile businesses travel across jurisdictional boundaries, so we certainly want to encourage neighboring jurisdictions to communicate, collaborate, and share information about mobile businesses with your neighboring jurisdiction. If you know of a problem jurisdiction, definitely reach out, or if you just have questions, we provide some resources in our best management practice guide that we would love jurisdictions to look into for collaboration.
Okay, the fourth recommendation we have here is to improve business licensing when it comes to stormwater management. This is a tall order. As I mentioned, Department of Revenue is not focused on things like environmental pollution. Having, like, ideally, it would be great if they could just include a checkbox. Yes, I'm a mobile business, but what does that mean on the tax side of things? And so even though we floated that idea to Department of Revenue, they're like, oh, that's a complicated thing to revise the business license process, and what does it mean? So we didn't get very far with that conversation, but we were able to open the door and actually share with Department of Revenue some of environmental considerations, state to state, department to state department conversation from the perspective of ecology. So, right, I think that's the end. Oh, well, we've got one page of links here. We won't go over these in detail, but this is where you can actually download the keyword search tool. It's a zip file. There's also a PDF of instructions about how to use it. And then some other links here to the SAM webpage, which has all the deliverables for the study.
Awesome, thank you. Let's give these guys a round of applause.
How to save businesses, that's a great question. We did not pursue that or look into that. So what does an out-of-state business do? They have to apply for a license in the city where they do work. So I think the same approach could apply, because if they have a business license, then when you obtain business license data in your jurisdiction, that should be included. And you'll see that one of the address fields will say, located with their home base is not in Washington State or something.